privileged committee of the Senate, no, sir? Before the privileged committee of, so committee should be there in various jurisdictions, and we were very happy to receive the research from Ms. Hamilton. Thank you very much again. That's page 2. Page 3 continues the research. Anything on page 3? Page 4, the research continues with New South Wales and contributions by Senator Scott Motley and Senator Morris, who has particular insight into this matter. Senator Gale contribution on page 5. Page 6, the discussions continue. Interesting, Ms. Brandon confirmed that there was no ethics committee in the Senate, but indicated that an ethics committee for the House of Representatives apparently exists. Senator Gale contribution. Senator Sinclair continues over. Very interesting discussion, page 7. I asked for a motion and confirmation. Senator Gale, seconded by Senator Morris. So the meeting minutes have been confirmed, and we move to the matters arising. And in truth and in fact, the discussion concerning this privileges committee continues, and I really would be happy if this discussion could be finalized today. If not, I understand the Senate is to meet next week, so I'm going to give you 2 meetings to finish this discussion. No, you say, well, if it's, if it's not, it's very interesting. If it's not finished today, we can do so next week. So I'm going to turn over to Senator. That's what I heard. But like you, I want to hear things. Thank you very much, Senator Morris. But you know that I'm a person that, if it is that a decision is made to keep an extra meeting here or there, I have little to say about that. Senator Sinclair.
All right. Good morning, members. As a substantive chairman has said, if we could get to a conclusion of this particular SO, I think the research that has been provided to us by more than one member of the parliamentary staff has been very interesting and eye-opening, and based on the comment that was made and pointed out to us by Ms. Brandon, that there is no ethics committee, and I believe some of the matters which came out in the research reflected matters concerning what I put under the broad heading of ethics. And as I said, I have a particular reading of the Standing Order 68-1 that speaks to the powers or privileges of the Senate and what is contained therein, although it is not defined anywhere else. Which I think has, well, it has taken me to a particular position, but I remember on the last occasion, Senator Gale had indicated that he had a some opposition to state, and he would do so at this meeting in relation to the discussions that have gone before. So, Senator Gill.
Morning again, colleagues. Chair, when I listened to the discussion the last time, and I looked at what the particular Standing Order 68 is saying, it refers to the Committee of Privileges on any matter which appears to affect the powers or privileges of the Senate. And it says to me that here is a committee that suggests what it ought to do without defining exactly what are some of those privileges that members could pursue. And when we listen to the debate, a lot of the debate last sitting we had surrounds matters of ethics. In fact, the research that was done provided information from the various jurisdictions around matters relating to ethics. And I thought to myself, well, this particular clause needs to be expansive in nature to define the scope and objective of this particular committee. And I looked at 69 that speaks to the Regulations Committee, and it defines how expansive in detail the role and function of that particular committee is. And I'm saying that we could, in fact, have a 68 one, well, the 1A would be represented in terms of what is there now, and a particular 1B that would be descriptive, definitive, and expansive in nature to describe the role. And maybe what we ought to do is to import from maybe the Ethics Committee in that other place to see if it fits in the remit of what this the Committee of Privilege ought to be defined as. So I'm particularly suggesting a kind of approach in treating with this particular standing order. Thank you, Chair.
Senator Morris, pull down the mic. Senator Morris, pull down, hold it down.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chair. I hear what Senator Gill has pointed to, and, you know, generally, Senator Gill is all about trying to bring a solution to a particular problem. So, I mean, I am prepared to look at the suggestion that he has made. One of the things that I want to point out currently in the Senate, that there are some practices that, if we are to accept Senator Gill's suggestion, would have to be considered and integrated here, because what you're talking about is putting practice into writing into the standing order, and that is something consistent with what we have been doing. So take, for example, Senator Sophia Fraser-Binns had raised the issue about the Ethics Committee, which we do not have in the Senate. But when there is a matter relating to a declaration from a senator as to engaging in contractual relationship with the government, that is considered by the Senate as a whole and is approved upon a motion that is moved by the leader of government business, and that is considered in the Senate in general. So, I mean, is it that we would want to change that approach and establish an ethics committee for the Senate to deal with those matters as currently exist in the House of Representatives. I would have to do some deep thinking where that is concerned, because if it ain't broken, why would I try to fix it? And that the current approach of the Senate is much more efficient in my estimation. But in terms of looking at some of the general practices and things that are referred to the Privileges Committee and itemizing it in an expansive way in the standing orders, it's something that I'm prepared to work along with because there are things that has been done relating to the Privileges Committee, relating to the Senate and also members of the Senate that have been established as practice and tradition in the institution, and we wouldn't want to throw away those in terms of consideration.
All right, thank you, Senator Morris. So, as I understand Senator Gale's comment, which I don't get the impression that Senator Morris is too far off from what he has suggested, and it seems also to coincide with comments made in relation to or by Senator Fraser-Binns. Senator Gale, see if you and members. So if we were to reword, if that, or renumber SO 68-1 to call it 68-1A and include a 68-1B, which would go as follows. And you can, the wording can be changed, but this is what I'm proposing at the, and it will go like this. It's an adoption really from what is contained in the standing orders of the lower house, that the Privileges Committee, in addition to its duty under the reworded renumbered 68-1A, shall also have the duty, that might be superfluous, but have the duty of A, receiving, investigating, and reporting of any complaints of departures by members from the political code of conduct, and I can't see it because a lot of senators tend to find themselves in that area on political platforms and so forth too. Yes. Senator Morris. B, requiring a member to make full disclosure of any interest which he may have, which is likely to cause a conflict of interest, and that is something that is also in our standing order in respect to you making your declaration. C, receiving, investigating, and reporting on any complaints of departures by members in relation to allegations involving conflicts of interest. D, examining requests made by any member to exempt him by resolution. It would change from the House to say of the Senate, from vacating his seat as member of the Senate if he becomes a party to any contract or has an interest in any firm or company which is a party to any contract with the government of Jamaica, for on account of the public service in keeping with Section 41 of the Constitution, which I believe specifically was what was raised by Senator Fraser-Binns, and how that matter is considered, and we were told that it is considered actually on the floor of the Senate and not in a committee that can look at it in some more detail if needs be. E, receiving, investigating, and reporting on any allegations of impropriety in respect of funds allocated to. Well, we don't get that, so probably that may not necessarily be applicable. So that is one that could be removed. I'll just read it, Senator Morris, so you can, and other members, so you can hear what that particular provision from the lower house is saying. Receiving, investigating, and reporting on any allegations of impropriety in respect of funds allocated to members for constituency purposes. So that would not be relevant here. All right? So that one is one that we could exclude from a reworded 68. F, monitoring reports emanating from the Integrity Commission in respect of non-compliance of members with the provisions of the Parliament Integrity of Members Act, which we have to comply with. And receiving and investigating any reports of civil or criminal proceedings being instituted against any member and making appropriate recommendations to the Senate. So it goes into what? In addition to anything that appears to affect the powers or privileges of the Senate as contained in what is currently 68.1, it would also, the Privileges Committee would be able to deal with other matters. So, go ahead. Yeah. Turn on that for Senator Morrison, please. Thank you.
Save and accept, Mr. President. I don't see anything there, and I would have to look back. If your proposal could be circulated for members to review, because I don't think you would expect us to make a decision on such expansive suggestion at this sitting here. So I would want to have it in writing so that I can look at them and also to look at some of the practices that have been here in the Senate, because right away coming to my mind is the privilege that individuals in the Senate have over documents that they use in their contribution, and it is their right to withhold, or it is their right to to declare that they will share. So I would want to see some of those privileges incorporated here.
All right, so can that be Madam Beckford? I got the name right? No, I understand. Not that you're drafting. It is just really taken from what is contained in the yes, with the exclusion of, as I said, E, because E would not be applicable, and it can be circulated so that they can look at it. I understand what Senator Morris is saying, because there are some other things that probably I would have added to this particular provision.
Right.
That speaks to the attitude and behavior and undertakings, or as the case may be, that may be given on the floor of the Senate that there might be an issue with, right? And persons can look on what other additions they would wish to make to these subsets for the next meeting. But if it could be circulated, what I just gone through, as a proposal to add, renumber and to add 68 1B.
Yeah.
With those listings, and then they can look on any other thing that they would wish to have added to those subsets.
Yeah.
So, Senator Longmore.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Do you mind reading E again for me, please?
E? Okay.
The one that you said we might not need to include.
All right. E says, receiving, investigating, and reporting on any allegations of impropriety in respect of funds allocated to members. This says specifically for constituency purposes.
Yeah, we don't need that.
Okay, all right.
We don't, no senator falls into that category.
Yes, I just wondered with respect to the responsibilities of ministers, but clearly not who would be responsible to constituents. So, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I ask you for just reading it to make sure that I have it right. Thanks.
All right. So we seem to be getting to some consensus as to how we will move forward with 68. And so until such time, I suppose we'll defer the 68 standing order until the next meeting. Members, when you get the document sent by email, I'd ask you to ensure that you look at it and to give thought to what you would wish to have added, that the Privileges Committee will, in effect, instead of establishing another committee, but the Privileges Committee will be able to look on these particular matters that may fall under the broad heading of ethics. All right? And so when you come to the next sitting of the Standing Orders Committee, we can be specific. And members, if you have thoughts in that regard, and you're proposing to do the additions, then you can just circulate them to the other members so that they can give it thought. So when we get back here, we can have a final sign-off on that amendment. All right, Senator Fraser-Binns.
Thank you, Chairman. Not relating to 68, but I remember that some time ago the substantive chairman had raised the issue of us just reviewing what we have done to date. I'm not quite sure if a determination had been made as to how we're going to proceed on that.
Well, when the substantive chairman comes
And I raise it, Chair, because we're at the end of, well, we're going on summer break. And I just wondered whether there was any contemplation as to how we're going to treat with that.
We'll get to that in a moment.
This is when you have an escalator.
This is when I didn't hear that.
This is when you have to escalate.
Or evacuate. All right. Yeah. So all right, 69, Regulations Committee. By the way, it's you have the number in the same because I have my whole 69. Regulations Committee. So I'll just go through that. The Regulations Committee shall have the duty of considering all such regulations as defined by the Interpretation Act, as for the time being in force, as under the authority of any acts are to be laid before the Senate and to be subject to negative resolution within the meaning of the Interpretation Act, and to bring to the special attention of the Senate any regulation or draft. And it goes on, A, which involves the expenditure of public monies or imposes or fixes fees for licenses or for services. B, which cannot be challenged in the courts on the ground that it is ultra-virus or is only temporarily so challengeable. C, the making of which appears to constitute an unusual or unexpected use of the powers conferred by the Act under which it is made. D, which purports to have retrospective effect, although the Act under which it was made does not in terms give the minister such a power. publication or the laying before the Senate of which appears to have been unduly delayed. F, as respects which there has been an unjustifiable delay in notifying the President that the instrument has come into operation before it was laid before the Senate. Or G, the purport or form of which appears to require elucidation. And 69.2, the Regulations Committee shall not consider a report on the merits or policy of any regulations.
Chairman,
You know, I get nervous when I saw that smile, Senator.
No, Chairman, I'm smiling because I sit on the Regulations Committee, and to my memory, say for one instance, every time we sit, we look at NHT. It's always about some regulations for some provision under the NHT Act for provision for special groups for housing. That has been the only thing that comes to the committee, say for one instance that I can remember when we looked at the telecoms and like walkie-talkie and special license. I call it walkie-talkie, but like special license, they're hurricane and you have to use other devices. Everything else that comes to the Regulations Committee, 99.99% of the things that come to the Regulations Committee deals with NHT. You know, and I raise it because I mean, there's a whole plethora of things that the committee ought to deal with, but those are the only things that come to the committee primarily.
I don't agree with you that it sets out a whole plethora of things, you know.
Look at it, Chairman.
Yes, it sets out A, B, C, D, etc. But then read the heading, the above. But the Regulations Committee shall have the duty of considering all such regulations as under the authority of any acts are to be laid before the Senate and to be subject to negative resolution.
But I'm just saying that the only thing that comes to the committee, well, the main thing that comes to the committee, not the only thing, the main thing that comes to the committee is the NHG provision for special housing allowances.
But
that's
if that,
the main thing.
Yes, but if that is what fits within this definition, then that is so.
Absolutely, I'm
Right.
not disputing. I'm just saying
Yeah, bring it to our
that we have
attention.
a number of things that can come to the committee, but that's the main thing that comes to the committee.
Is there any proposal, or are we satisfied with what is contained in 69?
At this point, Chairman, I don't have a proposal for any changes at all.
Okay. And so say all of us, right?
And being a former member of the board of the NHT is an institution that applies its statutory regulations very strictly. And it is one of those institutions that by the very nature of what comes before the parliament, it has to come. It must come. Yes. And it is often utilized by the nature of the provision that it's making in terms of the provision of housing solutions. So it is like an ordinary kind of submission that must come. What would be important in this case is to identify whether there are any other similar type of institutions that must make these kinds of submissions and whether or not they are failing to do so. Yeah? But that's for another kind of investigation.
And that's for another, yes.
And that's for another forum, at another place. Not in this house.
That is correct, sir. All right, so I'll just quickly go through 70, the Senate Committee. The Senate Committee, 1, shall have the duty of considering and advising the President on all matters connected with the comfort and convenience of members of the Senate, and from time to time reporting to the Senate its minutes of proceedings, 70. And 2, I'm certain a lot of persons would want to have a discussion in the Senate committee, right?
Senate committee. And if we've ever had a meeting.
I think the president is the chair of the Senate committee.
Okay.
No? Who is it? Sorry. All right, we're getting some guidance from Ms. Brandon. Go ahead.
So, based on Standing Order 72, the minister in charge of arranging the business of the Senate shall be the member and the chairman of the Senate committee.
Okay, so that is that. Let me get that.
The minister in charge of arranging the business of the Senate shall be a member and the chairman of the Senate
So
committee.
that would be the
the leader of government business.
There you
would
go.
be.
Right. 72. Just point me to that because I'm looking. You said 70. Oh, 72. Very well. Yes, Senate is 70, subsection 2.
Perhaps Ms. Branson can provide, Brandon, I don't know why I keep calling her Branson. I see, Branson written all over you. But Ms. Brandon, through you, Chairman, perhaps she can provide some guidance on this Senate committee. How does one get matters to the Senate committee, for example? Or what would cause a Senate committee, something that the committee just decides to meet, or is that there has to be a request by a senator on a particular issue that affects their comfort and convenience, or it is a petition? I would just like to know, if you can share how it usually operates, because I am not aware, and I stand to be corrected, but I'm not aware of Cavan. Are you understand the committee? If there's a meeting, if a meeting has been held in recent times. You're failing in your responsibility, committee member. But seriously, Ms. Branson, perhaps you can provide some guidance if you can, Ms. Brandon.
Senator Fraser-Binns, I would have to look into that matter because since my time being here, I can't recall the Senate committee meeting. Yes.
All right, so, yes, Senator Gill.
I remember meeting once, the Senate committee meeting once, and it was where someone from another jurisdiction would have been meeting with the Parliament and would have been making presentations as to how Senate committees, what are some of the things that Senate committee looks at. And that's when we started to talking about a new Parliament and the convenience of a new Parliament. But that was back in maybe 2013.
I think the luncheon break that Navel
Yes.
brought in came about, but
that was before my time.
But I think that.
And I suppose any matter that goes to a committee can come through the form of a motion to the Senate. Yeah. All right, so members 10:06. Sorry, Madam Clerk.
Hi, good morning, everyone. In light of the question just raised by Senator Fraser-Binns and the fact that some of us may not have had the experience, would there be any difficulty in amending the standing order to state how matters ought to be submitted to the Senate committee? And I also have an appreciation that it is somewhat a little bit different from the other parliamentary committees that would require a motion. So perhaps in this case, it could be a less formal way for matters to be sent to this particular committee. So perhaps it could be outlined as to how matters should be submitted.
That's a consideration, but yes, but then I suppose I don't really want to get into a long debate. It would then probably have us go and discuss what falls under this broad heading of comfort and convenience, which may involve a lot of things. And so if you take a particular approach, it being in a less formal way, then you may find a situation that you may have something that may fall in the category of being more serious, and then you find it excluded. But sticking to it as a motion, think about it for the next meeting. Senator Fraser-Binns, it's now 10:07, and our usual time for conclusion is at 10 o'clock. Yeah, I see. All right, so can I get a motion for adjournment, please? Seconded by moved by Senator Longmore, seconded by Senator Fraser-Binns. Thank you very much. Thank you, members, and to the parliamentary staff that did that extensive research in respect to what we had gone through in relation to Standing Order 68. I just want to again put my commendations and thanks for the effort. Thank you very much. This meeting stands adjourned.